Hello everyone, and welcome to another unit review, and today we are reviewing the newest tank and the first of the CG tanks, because CG Rain's going to be a tank, right? Anyway, doesn't really matter. Today we're here to talk about CG Sieghart. Anyway, CG Sieghart is an interesting unit to be sure. He is a absolutely incredible tank, and today we're going to look at this one, which is Alim's. Oh, that was very nice, Alim, of you to lend me it. I want to thank Alim for this, but he does have his Trust Mastery as well as Super Trust Mastery. So yeah, let's talk about CG Sieghart. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the other tanks that are in his direct competition. Why does it smell like burning? I'm not cooking anything, so that's news to me. Anyway, CG Sieghart. First of all, his Trust Mastery. His Trust Mastery is a 20% defense and spirit boost, as well as 30% to HP and 50% to limit burst rate fill, and 30% to earth resistance. So, his Trust Mastery is pretty nice for himself. It's also good for basically any tank in the game. HP, Spirit, and Defense all seem great. Now, other than that, as soon as I click to the right, thank you, BlueStacks, you're ever so cooperative, his Super Trust Mastery. Now, his Super Trust Mastery is a heavy shield. It is 85 defense, 80% to earth resistance, and 30% HP. It's nice to know that he kept his earth resistance. Basically, this guy is never going to get touched by anyone who does earth damage, ever. But it's a really nice heavy shield because that 30% HP, since we can't enhance shields, and 80 defense. The only downside, no spirit, really? Couldn't have given us just a little bit of spirit on this thing? Fine, whatever. Now, his limit burst, because we're going to talk quickly about his limit burst before we move on to stats, which is a big thing. His limit burst is very, 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 very powerful. It is a maxed out 1680% AoE, 3-hit physical attack using all of his defense as attack, which is a big thing for a tank who is primarily focused on defense. Basically means that you have just a very high attack power unit without having to focus on attack, and just being able to focus on the best thing for a physical tank to really worry about, defense. Other than that, he also gives an AoE 3-turn 45% damage reduction, and that damage reduction is huge, because most times when we see that big of a damage reduction, it's for 1 turn. This lasts for 3 turns for the entire party. That's quite big and potentially life-saving in some of the more difficult trials. But really, let's talk about his stats, because his stats versus all of the other 7-star tanks was one of the things Seriously, why does it smell like burning in my apartment? If I die in the middle of this, please know that sucked. Anyway, let's talk about some of his competition. First of all, Mercenary Ramza, who is a physical and magic tank. Well, Mercenary Ramza has a lower base HP, but can get more from stat pots, but it's not enough to make a difference. So currently, CG Sieghart is better. Now, on the other hand, Gladio, 7-star, lower base HP, but way higher stat potting potential. So, yeah, considerably higher, so Gladio is definitely better in HP. Wilhelm, actually the exact same. That's really easy. And Bosch is lower as well. Now, talking about defense really quickly. Defense, Mercenary Ramza, 200 with 850 extra points to defense. Not bad, not great either. Now, Gladio, 212, but only an extra 40 points you can get. That's not so good. Wilhelm, 218 base with 65 extra pots. That's huge. Bosch, 205 with 65 extra points. And CG Sieghart, 210 with 65. So basically, CG Sieghart does have a higher defense than almost everyone except for Wilhelm. And 8 points is a big difference, but the probable reason for that is Wilhelm is a counter tank that essentially relies on doing attack-based damage, whereas CG Sieghart can use all of his defense as an attack, with tons of his abilities, not to mention his limit burst, which already has an insanely high percent. So I completely understand why they did not give CG Sieghart a higher defense than he already got. But to be honest, I kind of prefer CG Sieghart than Wilhelm for defense because he can better use his defense stat than Wilhelm can. Not to say that Wilhelm is bad for all you Wilhelm users. Other than that, the last thing, Spirit. Mercenary Ramza, 184 with 50 extra points. Gladio, 189 with 40 extra points. Wilhelm, 192 with 40 extra points. And Bosch, 200 with 40 extra points. Now CG Sieghart, 201 with 40 extra points. So he actually comes out better than all of these physical slash magical split down the middle tanks. Now obviously not better than Awaken or Rain, but Awaken Rain is primarily a magic tank with some provoking action, so it's not really a fair fight so much. But CG Sieghart, the reason that I compare these is because Mercenary Ramza and Bosch are essentially pretty much the same type of unit as CG Sieghart, as CG Sieghart has both magic cover and physical cover, although not the best magic cover, so that's something to be considered. But CG Sieghart also has a primary focus on defense, which is why I compare him to Wilhelm and Gladio. Now, in general, overall, I would say that CG Sieghart is the strongest of all the tanks based on stats, because he has a little bit more focus on Spirit, which is good, but also his defense is really high, and he can be highly potted and get a really good amount of HP. So his real competition, the only one I think who comes particularly close because of the 8 extra defense points, is CG Wilhelm, but I would still give Sieghart a lot of credit for being better to use his defense stat to actually help as well as protect the party, which is something I've always said is very nice. Other than that, you can use his axe, hammers, whips, equips both kinds of shields, all types of armor and clothes, so pretty good in general. But the rest of his kit, now we get into that, so let me just change over here. Magic, he has Barstone Ra, he has Stone Ga, Barstone Ga, and Stonja. Anyway, so he has some magic capabilities, but no dual casting. Really, that's only going to be useful in maybe doing some earth damage in a fight with magic, I guess. Anyway, moving on. So what does he have in his kit that's so good? Well, passive-wise, he has a natural increased chance to be targeted by 50%. 30% to Spirit, he has a natural 50% chance to defend an ally, reducing 50% min or max damage, so all very good. If he has a light shield, then he gets upped in Spirit. If he has a heavy shield, he gets upped in defense by 50%, and he has a natural 50% earth resistance, so that's pretty good. Moving on, now, for all of his damaging attacks, I'm just going to say this really quickly as a footnote. Basically, all of them use defense as attack, so I don't have to mention it. Alright, so some of his attacks going up to his 7-star real quick. 5% chance to charm a single target, 200% attack, and debuffs Spirit 60%, so he can do some debuffs. He has an AoE 5% chance to charm, as well as 75% chance to defend allies from physical damage, reducing 50 to 70% of the damage. Super good cover. 36 MP, 8 hit attack at 8 frames, 280%. Very, very strong considering what his defense stat could be. 20% extra defense, 100% resistance to confuse and petrify. Super. Those are 2 nasty status effects. 30% to defense, 5% chance to charm, 200% single target hit attack that debuffs defense on the enemy for 5 turns of 60%. So some pretty strong debuffs for defense and Spirit. 30% bonus to HP, and here's a big one, 30% chance to counter magic with a self, 25% HP MP recovery, max once per turn. 25% is really big when you start stacking HP and MP on this guy, so that's a big counter. Other than that, 52 MP, 250% single target, one-hit physical attack that also does a 3-turn on a single target, 50% debuff to all things, and a 5% chance to charm because this guy's so charming, 20% to defense and spirit, 30% to HP, and here's a big one, auto charm immunity, meaning that he cannot be charmed, he can only charm you. Stupid sexy Sieghart. Anyway. And his last ability in his 6-star kit is a, well, if you use it the first time, it does an AoE 30% chance to charm and self 2-turn plus 100% chance to be targeted, and self 2-turn plus 40% physical damage reduction. And it grants him a skill. So all of those are particularly nice because, quite honestly, I mean, the charm, AoE charm at 30%, that's pretty good chance of hitting. 100% chance to be targeted, super. He reduces physical damage, and it grants him a skill. If he uses another ability before, which is essentially this ability, he gains access to, well, an AoE 50% chance to charm, 3-turn 80% chance to defend allies from physical damage at a 60 to 75% reduced rate, and 1-turn dodge 3 attacks. Super, super powerful in his 6-star. We haven't even gotten to his 7-star, which his 7-star is just even better. First of all, by equipping his TMR, 30% defense, 30% HP, and a 50% chance to ignore a fatal attack when over 5% HP once per battle / life, but then the big thing happens. An infinite plus 200% to defense and spirit after HP drops below 1%. So if this guy takes a ton of damage, he's essentially just going to boost himself forever. And a 200% boost to defense and spirit is huge for a tank. This essentially makes up for a lot of the stats that he may lose in other places, like that 8 defense points, because that's just insane to have that much extra defense and spirit. Of course, depends how much you can build him for, but it's still very interesting. The right use of this guy, he could be insane. Now we get into just a whole mess of cooldown abilities. 38 MP1, 2-turn cooldown, available turn 1, AoE 5% chance to charm, and 2-turn 75% chance to defend allies from magic, reducing damage 50 to 70%, so a very strong damage reduction in magic, and he can essentially cover the party from magic, which is particularly good, but it only lasts for 2 turns to... Ah yes, I remember what was cooking now. Ha! Anyway, moving on. AoE 5%. The 5% isn't super big, but AoE means that if you're dealing with a group of magic enemies, like the Calcabrina trial, it might be okay. It might be decent if you could remove a few of them from doing anything for a turn. And that goes on many of his abilities too. Anyway, next one, 88 MP, 6-turn cooldown, available turn 1, AoE 5% chance to charm, and 90% magic damage reduction. So, might not matter how high his spirit stat is if he can just get rid of all that magic damage. Next up, 65 MP, available turn 1 on a 1-turn cooldown. Okay, why not, I guess. 200% single target, 7 hits at 8 frames, physical attack, using defense of course, single target, debuffs earth resistance for 100% for 1 turn. I mean, since this guy is basically all about Earth, if you could put an Earth weapon on him, this is really, really good. Is there any axes that use the Earth element that you could enhance for defense in a weapon raid? I'm just thinking of so many possibilities. If only he could use spears, Eileen's would really be perfect on this guy. But that's probably why they didn't do that. Anyway. Next up, 5-turn cooldown, available turn 1, self 1 turn, plus 90% physical damage reduction. So he can guard the party, then use this if a big turn is coming up where he will take almost 0 damage, because his defense is going to be so high, and then he's just reducing physical damage. After that, 20% MP, 30% spirit and HP with light armor, 30% defense and HP with heavy armor, and 100% limit burst fill rate. And let's face it, the limit burst is always what we're kind of interested in with our CG units. Look how smooth my animation's running today. I'm sure it won't last. But still pretty cool. So I have to say that CG Sieghart is very powerful, both on defense as well as offense. Because the thing is, as we reload this yet again, the ability for any tank, the main focus of any tank more than anything is to protect the team from damage. And, well, most bosses can't be stopped, they can't be paralyzed, they can't be done really anything with a lot of the stuff that, you know. There we go. Let's see if we charm. No, that's a shame. But any good tank is supposed to protect the party from damage. If they aren't doing that, then they're not doing their job correctly. But if they can protect the party and do damage, then that's even better. So, in all honesty, I have to say the idea of this guy is very, very well done, because charm, many bosses are not immune to charm, meaning that you can essentially remove an enemy's turn. And that's about the strongest thing you can potentially do against almost any boss. Although I'm not entirely sure if this is a bug, but you're supposed to, if you use the ability I used last turn, you're supposed to unlock an ability, but I'm not entirely sure how that works. I don't know if it's a bug or not, but you can see the ability isn't showing up, it's just kind of disappearing, unless, let me just look real quick. Okay, it does. There it is. It's the 24 MP ability. It's just not listed properly. And we still failed the defense check. Isn't that sad? But at a 50% chance to AoE charm, that's very, very strong. Being targeted, being able to evade attacks, this guy has so much. And that potential, if he goes down to 1%, giving himself a 200% boost, being able to evade a potentially fatal attack is just huge for a tank. I can't even begin to explain how huge it is for this tank. I have to say that I am absolutely 100% impressed with CG Sieghart. He can do a lot of damage, he can debuff, he can protect the party from both physical and magical. Now, the big question, of course, is this really better than just getting a... Well, is this just better than having a physical and a magic tank if you already have a physical and a magic tank? Yes and no. This is where you're going to have to really decide what you want to do, the viewer. And I cannot tell you what is best for you. First of all, using a ton of resources does hurt. So here's the thing. We know a couple of things in the near future. First of all, well, okay, we don't know if we're getting another CG unit next month, but maybe, since they seem to be hinting at Axstar. But that's physical damage. So you have to ask where your priorities are. You have to ask if you care about Tomb Raider at the end of the month, which I don't. I care about CG units, because CG units are usually just the more powerful thing. But the other thing is, you know, is charm valuable? Absolutely. This is an incredibly powerful tank, and at first when I saw him, I was disappointed. I looked at his stats, I looked at his kit, and I was like, But the more I've given a thought about it, just the constant using of charm, the immunity to charm, the natural ability to draw enemies towards him, there is so much that this unit does really well, and he can do a lot of damage too. So the question you have to ask is, how valuable, how much are you willing to try for him? Remember, he is in the summon pool forever, but the step up does give you the best chance to essentially get him. I have to say that I'm a particularly big fan of CG Sieghart, and very happy to have him on my team, even with 7-star Gladio, as well as 7-star Awakened Rain. Awakened Rain can take the magic, he can take the physical. I'm pretty much covered for both, and if I charm Odin or Leviathan and I remove one of their turns, I don't know if they're charm immune. I didn't look it up before this, so sue me. Don't sue me. But anyway, the point is that CG Sieghart, fantastic unit, absolute great addition to the CG units, and continues very proudly the tradition of CG units being incredibly powerful. So that's all for now. I will see you all in the next video, where we will be looking at something else. So